Okay, this is module 1.3, hardware. Remember that in module 1.1, we looked at the two main sort of categories when we're looking at computers. We're dealing with hardware and software. In module 1.2, we took the topic of software and we split it up into two main categories, application software and system software. We are now in this module looking at hardware. Now, this module falls under two different themes that we study in CAT. And when you write a test for CAT theory, you'll often be asked to write questions under the theme of systems technology. So that's what we're going to look at first. And then some of the sections in this module also fall under social, environmental, and ethical implications. So we are starting with systems technologies. What is inside a computer? What are the main components? I think it's really important if you do not know what is inside a computer, and I will show you when you come back to school what the inside of a computer looks like, but I think it's really worthwhile that you watch this video, and hopefully you're able to look out for these different components being mentioned: the power supply unit, the motherboard, the central processing unit, the random access memory, the heatsink, the graphics card, and the hard drive, whether it's a normal hard disk drive or a solid state drive.
You may already know.
Okay, I'm not going to watch that now. You can watch that if you need help with that. Just a recap of our information processing cycle. We're going to be looking at input. So some of our hardware devices input information into the computer. Processing. Some hardware devices are involved in the processing cycle of your computer. Some hardware devices are involved in the output of data, and then we're able to use some hardware to store data. So input. Input is how we as users communicate with the computer. That is how we give it information or data, and input is the data and instructions that are given to the computer. We have to give a computer an instruction telling it to do something. Otherwise, the computer can do nothing. Input devices include the mouse, the keyboard, touchscreen, joystick, game controller. The mouse. How does the mouse work? It works with an LED. So that would be the little light underneath that emits a red light underneath the mouse onto whichever surface the mouse is placed on. Sensors are used to determine which way the mouse has been moved. The results, including which mouse buttons have been pressed, are sent to the computer. 5 actions that one would expect a mouse to be able to do: click, double click, right click, drag, and scroll. Keyboard, most commonly used input device. You get on-screen keyboards on a portable device like your smartphone or a tablet, whereas a laptop will have a built-in keyboard. 2 types of keyboard layout that we learned in module 1.1, QWERTY and Dvorak. You get a wireless keyboard and mouse. You don't have to have cables to connect the device to the computer. It could use short radio waves, such as Bluetooth, to communicate over a short distance. So you would have to have a computer that had Bluetooth as an option. You would enable Bluetooth on the device. You would then have to scan for Bluetooth and select the keyboard and mouse. You need batteries to operate wireless devices. So if the battery is flat and you don't have a backup, that particular device will not work. So advantages of a wireless mouse and keyboard: less clutter on the desk, no cables getting tangled, have a wider range of movement. Disadvantages: requires batteries, more expensive to purchase than if you bought a corded device. Wireless signals can be interfered with, and therefore the device could stop working. Could be stolen easily. One of the things that often these devices come with is like a little mini flash drive that you have to plug into the computer in order for these devices to work. And if you lose that little mini flash drive, the device won't work. Ports. Ports are used to connect devices to the computer. The main types of ports one would expect to find at the back of the computer: USB, Universal Serial Bus; VGA, Video Graphics something; HDMI, high definition multimedia interface, VGA. Just quickly check what VGA stands for. VGA, it stands for Video Graphics Array. Yeah. VGA cables are becoming very unpopular. They're not being used as much, and everyone's kind of moving over to your HDMI. And we'll look at a few other ports that companies are also putting on their devices instead of VGA. So this is just a picture of a random desktop computer, going over some of the components one would expect to find on the computer. A power button, generally they are circular in shape, but they don't have to be, but the power button. Some computers come with an optical disc drive, so you can plug a DVD, CD, Blu-ray disc into the device. But not all devices come with them. And in fact, a lot of people are moving away from installing optical disc drives because you don't need the CD. You're able to just stream things online. So they are becoming redundant, not really used anymore. Then we have our audio jack. This one is for the microphone. Generally, that would be pink in color. Card reader, that's also an optional thing, not always included. You can put your SD card, micro SD card in to get the computer to read it. 5 audio jacks, you can plug your headphones in or speakers in. Then you would need USB Gen 1 and USB Gen 2. So these are older USB ports. The ones with the blue line are the newer ones. Basically, the older ones will copy from, say, for example, data from your flash drive onto the computer at a slower speed than if you use the faster ones. So if you've got a choice, always use the blue ones because they'll be a lot quicker. At the back of the computer, this is just a standard computer back, there should be 8 audio out. So you could plug in speakers, headphones. 9 mic, so you can plug a microphone in. 10 audio in if you need to get audio into the device. 11 VGA port. 12 serial port. Serial port is also becoming redundant, not really used anymore. Then we've got 12. Oh, that's 12. 13 is the display port. Do not mix display port with HDMI. They look very similar. Okay, the display port at the bottom, it's a lot more square and only rounded on the top left corner. HDMI is rounded on both sides. Then we've got some USB again. And we've got the RJ45 port. This is if you have cabled internet. So if you've got a computer at home and you've got internet at home and you plug a special Ethernet cable from the router of your internet into the computer, you will actually have much better internet. Okay? Wi-Fi, when you download things, if you're downloading lots of things, Wi-Fi is not as strong as actually having a cable plugged in. So this can be a useful port. Okay, at the back of the computer, you would also expect to see the power port. This allows the power plug to be connected that provides power to the computer. A power plug would also be connected to the monitor, and generally the monitor would have a cable, it's blue, and it would plug from the VGA port on the back of the computer and the VGA port on the back of the monitor. So they would both have this cable. New advances means that the HDMI is being used. And here's an example of the Ethernet port with the cable. What is output? Output is what the computer produces to provide us with the results of processing. Output can take the form of text, graphics, audio, or video. Types of output devices. We have the monitor, printer, speakers, and headphones. There are more. If we look at the monitor The size of the monitor is measured in inches. So those little two quotation marks are used to refer to inches. So for example, that would be 19 inches. Resolution refers to the number of pixels used to form the screen image. 1920 by 1080 is a common measurement of resolution. Response time, this is the measurement in milliseconds that it takes to change a pixel, which is really important for gamers. Okay, so cables that will be used to connect to the monitor, the power cable and the VGA cable. One goes in the monitor, one power cable in the monitor, a power cable in the computer desktop, and a VGA cable also plugged into the computer desktop. Display cable. The display port looks similar to HDMI, but it is a different connector, more common on PCs than TVs. It still allows for high definition video and in many cases audio. There's a more up-close image of DisplayPort versus HDMI. So yeah, we've got HDMI, high definition multimedia interface, to plug your PC onto your TV. DVI, digital visual interface, to connect gaming console to PC or TV to PC. The video card, the graphics card, inside the tower can help to determine the image quality displayed on the screen. This is important for computer gamers. In fact, your pro gamers are actually getting graphics cards that look like this. You'll notice that they've actually got fans built on them. Okay, so these are your more expensive ones. And they've actually got fans inserted over them to cool it down because they can get really hot when you're gaming. And when you've got a gaming computer, you actually need quite a lot of fans to keep your computer cold. Okay, so these are examples of your graphics cards that are used by gamers. And this is just a very simple graphics card. Printers, they produce hard copy. Hard copy is output printed on paper, except 3D printer because they don't print on paper. Most common types of printers: inkjet, laser, dot matrix, multifunction, 4-in-1, and 3D printer. This is an example of a laser printer. Laser printer works like a photocopy machine. In fact, those are the types of printers we have at school. They use toner, not ink. They're cheaper to run. They're expensive to buy. They print faster than inkjet, and you can print black and white and color depending on the type of printer you buy. If the printer only says black and white, then you can only print black and white. Inkjet printer works by spraying microscopic dots of ink onto the paper, uses ink, expensive to run, cheaper to buy. Notice the difference. Laser is cheaper to run but expensive to buy. Inkjet is expensive to run but cheaper to buy. Prints good quality color images, especially photographs. So if you want to do a lot of printing onto special photograph paper, an inkjet would be the better option. And once again, depending on the type of printer you have, you can either print black and white or black and white and color. Dot matrix printer. These are not used a lot nowadays. They're mostly found at doctors' and dentist offices. They only print black and white. They print a carbon copy. So you have one copy and the other side is given to the receptionist and they would put it in their files. The costs are very cheap to run. Multifunction printer can scan, print, fax, and photocopy. And nowadays the faxing is actually email. So you can scan something and email it to yourself. You can print something, you can photocopy something and email it to yourself. It's cheaper than buying 4 separate devices. In fact, the printer that we have nowadays in the computer lab is actually a multifunction printer because you can print, it can photocopy, it can scan, and it can send to your email address. Printer installation. So you buy a printer. How do we get it to work? Well, I need to connect it to my computer. Printers are either connected to the computer using USB cable or Wi-Fi. Printers are generally configured as plug-and-play device. That means when you connect the cable to the printer and the computer, the necessary drivers install so the two can communicate with each other. So plug and play means that if you plug a device into the computer, it is able to work almost straight away. It downloads the necessary drivers, which are probably stored on the computer in the operating system, and it will work. If it doesn't, you would have to go onto the website of the company who manufactured that product, and you'd have to download the driver there. Driver is software that will get the one hardware component to talk to the other, so the printer to talk to the computer, so it knows what you want it to do. What is the default printer? If you have computers in a network, you will typically have more than one printer in the network. The default printer is the one that you use the most. When you click print, it will print to your default unless you change the setting. Changing the default printer, you go to the control panel, you go to printers, you right-click on the icon of the printer that you want to be the default printer, and you select default printer. So if I show you, I go at the bottom here and we go control panel. Okay, I'm looking for my printer, so I must have hardware, view devices and printers. Have a look for my printer. Here's my printer. I right click and I can click set as default printer. Okay, there it is now my default printer. Printer queues. When you send a document to the printer, it will temporarily be stored on the hard drive, where it waits until the printer is ready to print. Each print task is placed in a queue. So if 10 people in the class click the print button, there is going to be a queue where all the print jobs will be stored, and it will release whichever one it received first, then the one it received second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And so the print queue is where it is temporarily storing the printing until it is printed. 3D printer, a machine allowing the creation of a physical object from a three-dimensional digital model, typically by laying down many thin layers of a material in succession. These 3D printers can print plastic objects. Bioprinting is the three-dimensional printing of biological tissue and organs through the layering of living cells. They use a 3D printer. So these 3D printers are now being used to create ears and organs, hearts, lungs for patients. And because they can use the recipient's cells, the body is less likely to reject that particular organ. This is really cool what it has brought for the medical community. Storage, comparison between memory and storage. Memory, a primary memory is RAM, random access memory. Secondary memory or storage, any storage device. Typical sizes for RAM, 2 gigs, 4 gigs, 8 gigs of RAM. Hard drive is about 1 terabyte. External hard drive, maybe you've got 1 to 3 terabytes. Flash drive is typically about 64 gigs. A CD is only 700 megs. DVD is about 4.7 gigabytes. Volatility, what happens when the power goes off? It loses the contents when the power goes out. But more recent developments with RAM can lead to some data still being temporarily saved. Non-volatile means data is saved permanently, so if the power went off, the data would still be there again when the computer is loaded. Storage capacity. This refers to how much disk space one or more storage device provides. It measures how much data a computer system may contain. So here we have our C drive. That is where our operating system is stored. And we can see that 170 gigabytes of 225 gigabytes is free. Likewise, we have a USB drive. 2.3 gigabytes is free of 3.73 gigabytes. For example, a computer with a 500 gig hard drive has a storage capacity of 500 gigabytes. A network server with 4 1 terabytes has a storage capacity of 4 terabytes. Okay, these are our units of storage. A bit is a single 1 or 0. That's your binary digit. A nibble is 4 bits. A byte is 8 bits. A kilobyte is 1024 bytes. A megabyte is 1024 kilobytes. A gigabyte is 1024 megabytes. A terabyte is 1024 gigabytes. A petabyte is 1024 terabytes. Now we're starting to get hectic storage here. Exabyte is 1024 petabytes. I can't even imagine how big that is. A zettabyte is 1024 exabytes. And a yottabyte is 1024 zettabytes. That's huge storage, guys. Like a petabyte is already massive. Okay, the second theme we're looking at is social and ethical implications. We are looking at green computing and ergonomics. Green computing is a term used to describe using computers in a way that is sensitive to the environment. So, tips for practicing green computing. Switch off the computers when you're not using them. Proofread documents before printing. Print duplex. That means print on both sides of the page. Don't throw away hardware. Rather donate or recycle. Upgrade computers. Send empty ink cartridges back to manufacturer. These are some of the things we can do to improve our to improve the environment, to make sure that we're not killing the environment, damaging the environment by just dumping these things. E-waste is the dumping of outdated, broken electronic equipment. Why is e-waste so bad for the environment? Computers and different types of computer equipment often contain extremely toxic and dangerous chemicals and materials. So on the environment, you've got pollution of ground and water, acidification of soil, air pollution. E-waste accounts for 40% of the lead and 75% of heavy metals found in landfills. On human health, there is damage to your DNA, lung cancer, damage to heart, liver, and spleen, chronic damage to the brain, asthmatic bronchitis. So we really need to, as a society and as a world, look for better ways to get rid of computer equipment that we no longer want. The dumping of e-waste in Africa. Tens of millions of tons of toxic, trashed electronics from America and Europe are quietly, illegally dumped in Africa every year. Discarders of electronic goods expect them to be recycled properly, but almost all such devices contain toxic chemicals, which, even if they are recyclable, make it expensive to do so. As a result, illegal dumping has become a lucrative business. Injuries such as burns, untreated wounds, eye damage, lung and back problems go hand in hand with chronic nausea, anorexia, debilitating headaches, and respiratory problems. Most workers die from cancer in their 20s. These are people that live in countries and in cities where they have these huge e-waste dumps. Health issues for your computer user. Carpal tunnel syndrome, repetitive strain injury, back pain or back aches, eyesight deterioration. How to prevent health issues. Sit correctly. Do not slouch. Adjust the height of your seat and table so that your body has the correct posture. Make sure of adequate lighting and ventilation. Use an ergonomic keyboard or mouse to help to prevent carpal tunnel syndrome or repetitive strain injury. Give your eyes a rest every few minutes by looking away from the screen and blinking. What is ergonomics? This is the study of people in their work environments. It investigates how to make items like keyboards and computer mice better suited to the human body in terms of ease of use, as well as comfort and safety. So, making the workplace a safe place for the worker. That means having to change what keyboard or mice look like, change the design of the chair. Okay, that is the end of module 1.3.